case you missed it, Kanye West is running for president in the year of 2020. This is the Life Given Podcast. I'm Isaac Lopez. So in today's show, I want to look at Kanye West running for president, his interview he did with Forbes. And then in our last segment today, I just want to introduce a new segment that we are going to call a FreeThought Friday, something that doesn't normally pertain to current events, but something that I've been mulling over for the last few weeks, and I wanted to share it with you guys free of charge. So your FreeThought Friday in a free country. So to kick things off, I just want to look at a pros and cons list of this interview that Kanye West did with this Forbes interviewer. Now, a couple of things before we get to that. The first thing is that a lot of this article is in bullet points. This is not a transcript of the actual conversation. This is highlights from that conversation. It sounded like it was a very long, productive conversation, but there is no transcript for it. So a number of people that I've listened to already on this have filled in quite a bit, and I think have attributed some to Kanye West. And I think that's inevitable when looking at an article that's written like this. That's not really, you don't get the entire picture of the conversation. You don't get the actual flow to it. So sometimes nuance is lost in the way, and sometimes you don't get the entire picture of what the interviewee was saying. So that's clarification number one. Clarification number two, or I guess qualification in this case, is that I just want to pick out some of the highlights, some of the things that I would like to just kind of weed out into a pros and cons list. And then at the end of it, offer up just some general thoughts and feedback on the idea of Kanye West being our president, okay? Because right now, already at the beginning of research, I found that he's well behind the times on running for president. And in 4 states right now, I think he was too late to register to be an option in those states or something to that effect. So he is very much behind the times, and he's got a lot of catch up to do. But crazier things have happened. Crazy things have happened in 2020. So the fact that Kanye West has announced that he's running for office doesn't surprise me. Just like, it shouldn't surprise anyone since Donald Trump has been president for almost 4 years now, okay? So never discount anyone at any time in America, but especially this time. In this time and day and age, a rapper, a musician, a sneaker mogul could easily become president if Donald Trump was also able to become president. So just a couple clarifications before we jump into this, but let's jump in with just a few of the quotes and then some things, some conclusions I think we can draw from that. And if you have any feedback on my feedback, if you disagree with my assessment of the situation, let me know. I'm on Instagram and Parler. On Instagram at _TLG podcast _ all lowercase, and then on Parler at TLG podcast. The first 4 letters of those are capitalized, and you can get in touch with me over Facebook at the Life Given News, or over email at the lifegivenandreceived@gmail.com. Anyway, now that the shameless plug is over, let's jump in. Okay, so with this Forbes article, just a couple things on his campaign. He said that he is definitely wanting to run in 2020. Over and against his original plan, his initial plan was to run in 2024. Sorry, I'm messing with the brightness a little bit on my screen here. The campaign slogan is yes, and we will get to that at the very end, but he explains his slogan. And his running mates, his VP, is Michelle Tidball, an obscure preacher from Wyoming. That's how the article described it. And the birthday party is the group, the political group that he is campaigning under, as he is not running as a Republican, because he mentions that he would run as a Republican if Trump weren't there. But since Trump is there, he won't run as a Republican. And he's going to run as an independent because Trump, he says, if Trump is there, Trump's going to be there. Okay. Already there are polls that are starting to show that Trump is really already trending upward. And I think that's a bit of recency bias, but we'll get into that next week. There's this rather long quote, but I think that it shows, this would fall in my pro category. I think that this shows that Kanye West has a better understanding of racial issues in America than either of the two candidates for the 2020 presidency, for the 2020 campaign has. So Trump or Biden, I think he's got a better grasp of it. So here's this quote. This is under the heading in the article on the need for racial healing after George Floyd. Well, God has already started the healing. This conversation alone is healing and revealing. We all need to start praying and kneeling. Another bar after that. But when a rhyme comes together, I'm going to complete it, not inside the lines created by organizations that we know as our reality. The schools, the infrastructure was made for us to not truly be all that we can be, but to be just good enough to work for the corporations that design the school systems. We're tearing that up. What we'll do is we're not going to tear up the Constitution. What we'll do is amend. So I think that you can unpack a lot from this, but I think that this is a way better response than what we've seen from many candidates or from many of just our leaders, whichever side of the political aisle they fall on. So we've looked at a couple pros here, but I would like to look at a couple cons next. We're jumping around. If you're following along in the article, feel free. I will attach a link to that in the show notes. A couple of the cons that I have is the lack of political maturity. And this is coming from someone who's very young. Take this with a grain of salt, if you will. But the lack of political maturity worries me. And I'll get to that in a second, why I am worried about that. But when you're entering this high of an office, you need to know what you're doing. I think that's just fair. You need to be able to have the appropriate wisdom and I think some experience. And I think that he could translate a lot of his life experience into the office of president. Take Donald Trump, for instance. But Donald Trump also brought in a lot of experience from being a millionaire, a billionaire, and running his own corporations. That he's shown lots of leadership. Kanye, I think, has been a leader into his own right, but I think it'd be interesting to see how that translates into developing policy. And on taxes. So this is his policy on taxes. I haven't done enough, his response. Okay, just to be fair there. I haven't done enough research on that yet. I will research that with the strongest experts that serve God and come back with the best solution. And that will be my answer for anything that I haven't researched. I have the earplug in, and I'm going to use that earplug. So on this, I think that this could be worrisome. And then he also goes on to say this about foreign policy. Under the header of foreign policy, he says, I haven't developed it yet. I'm focused on protecting America first with our great military. Let's focus on ourselves first here. And so like I said, I would put this actually in my cons list because I think that when you're entering that kind of high pressure situation of being the president of one of the greatest nations in the world, that it requires a lot of leadership and confidence. And if you don't have those policies ironed out, your political opponents are going to tear you apart. And in my brief amount of time following politics and current events, I know that for a fact, that people are ruthless if you do not know your stuff, and it will become evident even if you have the backing of a big party, say the Republican or Democrat. Joe Biden is a good example of that. Regardless of having the entire backing of the Democratic Party, people still realize just kind of the bumbling fool that he is, or just the age that he is at right now, and that's a limitation. Okay, so I think that people will pick up on your lack of knowledge in a certain area, and they won't let that go. Okay, they're going to harp on that. And I think that could hurt your chances, especially entering a race at this at this stage in the race. Okay, at this stage of the game. So that's one worry. My other worry is that if he were elected, is he going to take the first 2 years to be able to figure out what he actually has to do? And obviously, there's a time of adjustment in any job, but I think that is. I think that's a valid concern to have floating in your mind if Kanye does really make a serious run here, because he also makes another comment saying that if he doesn't make it this year, he's still running again in 2024, saying that it was the Lord's appointment that he didn't run in 2020, and he will make that clear. And I commend his faith. I love that he is such a stalwart Christian, but jumping into being the president of the United States, you don't have to be an expert on everything, but you also, I think, need to become knowledgeable on some of those things. He even acknowledged that he didn't vote for the majority of his life. So there's just some things there that raise a few red flags for me. If we are seriously going to consider Kanye West running for president, then we need to look at stuff like this, and we can't just look at his principles, because I think he has great principles. I think he made a comment on abortion, saying that he is pro-life, and that he's pro-life because I'm following the word of the Bible. And I also think he has a better understanding of racism in America. I think he has a better grasp of what the evil actually is than I would say Donald Trump has. I think he would be a better candidate because I would know that I could hold him to a standard. And that's the thing that's frustrating me about Donald Trump is that, yeah, I think he's done a lot of great things as a president, and he's improved the country significantly. But I don't see how you can look at him and say, we can hold him accountable to a standard, to a higher being. Because even in his Mount Rushmore speech, he said the right things, but I don't know if he necessarily believes them. And some of his policies that he has put in place allows me to doubt that. I think it brings me into question. So, general feedback time. What do I think about this? I think that the pros are that Kanye has the right principles, that he has a better grasp and a better worldview about what's going on in the country. Than he probably has a better worldview and is more aggressively Christian than our last 3 or 4 presidents easily. And then what are the cons? The cons, I think, are just lack of experience when it comes to this kind of thing. I don't think that that's a game changer, but I do think that that can be a game impactor, if you will. I think that could be a big challenge for him. And that's something that you need to consider if you're going to vote for him, and if he does make a big run here in 2020. Okay, Free Thought Friday. A free thought here on your Friday. As you head into the weekend after a busy week. I know it's a busy week over here, and culturally, it's not slowing down. Okay, so I just want to kind of take a breather here before we enter the weekend, and just first of all, be able to think about something other than current event after current event, and kind of back up and get maybe a broader perspective on what's been going on. We're now a week and a half into season 2. It feels honestly like it's just episode 2, but I know it's only episode 5, but really these like as soon as I'm done and I'm publishing the podcast episode, I'm looking into I'm starting to research for the next episode. It's just really nonstop. We're going at high speed. So something like this, I really enjoy thinking on just like the broader principles of something or the broader perspective. And I think it can be refreshing in some instances. I have heard that I listen to a lot of sports radio, okay, or used to. I've kind of trended away from that. I'm trending away from that just because there's not a lot of sports going on right now. And this is leading into what I want to lay out for you guys here. I love sports. I love listening to sports. I love watching sports. You name it, I probably watch it. Football, cycling, basketball. I'll even watch some soccer, baseball. I support a lot of teams. I'm fans of a lot of players. And so accordingly, I listen to a lot of post game, pre game, and in the middle of the games, right? I'm just listening to radio and podcasts, and they since the coronavirus hit, I've heard a lot of talk, especially recently, as we try to get back to having sports. I've heard the idea of escapism brought up, the principle of escapism, the desire to have something that distracts us from our realities, from the tough reality of our day-to-day lives. And I think you can apply this to movies, but this one sports commentator that I listen to a lot was going on a rant today, like he always does. And he's like, it's time for us to get back to sports so that way we can have a break from our day-to-day lives and just escape the craziness, like help this country to heal from the wounds of the coronavirus and from this crazy movement that's sweeping across our nation. We just need a break every now and then. I get that. I understand that. I mean, there's just a part of sports that allows you to take a break from the day to day, and it also connects you with people that you may otherwise not say hi to. For example, I went to our local building supply store today, and I was wearing my Chiefs shirt, actually the one I'm wearing right now, and I'm walking out, and this guy who is wearing a Kansas Jayhawks hat, which is a local university to Kansas City, and is also wearing a Chiefs shirt, says, "Hey, man, go Chiefs." He's wearing a mask. He's someone I've never recognized before. I might not have recognized him even without the mask, but I've never seen this man in my life. And I said, "Hey, go Jayhawks," right? Because they're in the same vicinity. I grew up in Kansas City. And we just talked about Patrick Mahomes because he just signed a huge contract. If you don't know who Patrick Mahomes is, where have you been living? But also, he's the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they just won the Super Bowl, by the way. And also, just a disclaimer, I've been a lifelong fan. Anyway, this is derailing. So let's get back on topic here. So we talked for just a minute and a half, but I had just a brief connection with this man, a brief conversation, and I started thinking about the Chiefs' past season. I thought about the great community that resides in Kansas City, and there's a connection that we shared in that moment that allowed us to forget what was going on. It allowed us to forget the reason that he was wearing that mask, the reason that we were social distancing, all of that because of sports. Okay, so there's a place for sports, and I don't want that to come across what I'm about to say. I don't want it to sound as if I think we should get rid of sports completely. But what I do think is look at the bright side of something like this. Look at the bright side of having not only sports canceled, but a lot of other things canceled. A lot of music festivals. Broadway has been canceled for 2020. A lot of our distractions have gone, and really it's Netflix. Okay, and people get tired of Netflix very quickly. This is allowing us to deal with a lot of issues that I think we have let slide until this point. I think that's a great thing. I think it can be a very good thing as long as we make good with the time that we have. With people less distracted, I think Christians especially are starting to wake up to realize the state that our country is in. And I think the silent majority is starting to rise up and voice their principles and ideas that otherwise they might be happy living in silence for the rest of their lives. But now, due to the fact that we no longer have sports, we no longer have football, basketball, baseball playing on a regular basis, we're forced to come to grips with the reality with the reality of the state of our country. And I think that can be a good thing and produce many useful conversations and many productive situations. I think we can turn this ship and right this ship. Anyway, that's my tidbit for you. I hope that you guys have a great weekend. This was a great first full week of the podcast. We did a couple in week 1 last week, but with week 2 fully underway, this is going to be a great season. I hope you're along for the ride. Please like and subscribe and share the show with people that you know that lead busy lives, right? But would like to keep up with current events, or they just don't know how to, because all of the things out there are an hour and a half long, 2 hours, whether it's an article or whether it's another long form podcast. This one we try to keep short. So anyway, I'm going to cut it short here. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And remember that the life that you have been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Rap is no exception. God bless.